Outlander is heading toward its final season, and these coming episodes are all set up to create a profound full-circle moment. As a time travel fantasy series, there are a variety of meaningful ways that Outlander can retroactively create connections within its own story. As the TV show approaches its ending, the time is running out for such connections to solve mysteries from early in the series. However, when looking at the characters' places across time, it's slowly becoming clear how Outlander events from season may first link to the time-traveling adventures of season 7 or 8. One of the most intriguing aspects of Outlander's story is the way time travel has manipulated the events within the characters' lives. For example, Brianna went back in time to stop Claire and Jamie from dying in a house fire but ultimately turned out to be the cause of this fire instead. Similarly, Roger went back in time looking for his son, Jemmy, but wound up introducing his ancestors, Guylas Duncan and Dougal Mackenzie, thus ensuring his own existence in the future. These were all accidents, but there is reason to believe that Outlander's characters eventually learn to use such paradoxes to their advantage. Outlander must reveal the origin of the forget-me-nots at Cray Na Dun. These flowers drew Claire to the Standing Stones. Claire collecting forget-me-nots by the stones in Outlander. Way back in Outlander Season 1, Claire took a little trip to Cray Na Dun by herself since she wanted to collect the forget-me-not flowers she noticed growing there the night before. The blue buds aren't native to Scotland, which is why Claire was so intrigued by them. She was curious about where they had come from and how they had come to be planted in such a spiritual and symbolic place. Of course, this is when Claire first slipped through the stones and landed in the 18th century to meet Jamie, and her Outlander adventure began. There are no forget-me-nots planted at Cray Na Dun in the past, which means they were planted there sometime between the 18th and 20th centuries. If they hadn't been there, Claire would never have traveled in time to begin with, which means characters like Brianna and her children would never have been born. It seems likely that whoever planted the forget-me-nots in a place where they really shouldn't have been knew this. The question of who has been an outstanding mystery in Outlander, and since the flowers started Claire's journey, it makes sense that Season 8 would end things with an explanation. Brianna and Roger's children are the perfect characters to plant these important flowers. Claire's own grandchildren might have planted the forget-me-nots. Any of the time travelers of Outlander could technically plant the forget-me-nots in Cray Na Dun to ensure that Claire eventually visits the stone to gather some. However, perhaps the most fitting characters to do so would be Brianna and Roger's children, Jemmy and Mandy. These two have been the most immersed in time travel since they were both born in the 18th century and have been raised between this time and the 20th century. Jemmy and Mandy Mackenzie also have the deepest connection to the forces that be since they are the offspring of not just one but two time travelers. There is something deeply magical about Jemmy and Mandy. They share a psychic connection and are intimately aware of the power of the stones and the ley lines that connect them. It seems likely that, of their family, Jemmy and Mandy would be the best at time travel. Claire, Brianna, and Roger haven't quite gotten the hang of jumping through time, but these children may master the art of traveling through the stones. If they do, they could determine the perfect time to plant forget-me-nots at Cray Na Dun, thus ensuring that their grandmother begins her adventures at the right moment. Other possible answers to this full-circle Outlander mystery. Who else might have brought Claire to the Standing Stones? Outlander Cray Na Dun feature image, revised. While Outlander seems to be setting up Jemmy and Mandy to become important figures in time travel, thus hinting that they will be the ones to plant the forget-me-nots, there could be other explanations. Outlander audiences have been sharing theories since Season 1, and several make great sense. Some have guessed that Claire herself will plant the forget-me-nots to ensure that she travels through time, perhaps following Jamie's possible untimely death in Outlander's ending. Others have suggested that Jamie will plant the flowers after Claire's death, fittingly sending a message to his wife in the future not to forget him regardless of the answer. It certainly seems that the forget-me-not flowers of Cray Na Dun will play an important role in Outlander's ending. These tiny blue blooms started it all, and drawing a connection between them at the end of Claire's story would create a perfect full-circle moment. Of course, only time will tell how the time travel fantasy series will handle this mystery.